Hello, this is Chapter 9, Population-Based Public Health Nursing Practice, the intervention wheel. Now, this one is going to be a little long, so bear with me. Objectives: we identify the components of the intervention wheel, describe the assumptions, describe the wedges, differentiate among 3 levels of practice, apply the nursing process at 3 levels of practice. We might not get to the application, but we're definitely going to describe, define, and differentiate. So let's talk a little bit about the intervention wheel and its origins and evolution. It's grounded in the theory processed by Minnesota public health nurses. It was identified as core public nurse health functions. It identifies individuals, families, communities, and systems. The intervention wheel origins and evolutions is here in this wonderful little diagram, and just kind of show the different resources and where it came. It was a systematic critique to validate interventions through the best evidence and to identify best practices for each intervention. So our intervention wheels and origins was grounded by these theories of identified with individuals, families, communities, and it identified 17 interventions adapted worldwide. So this has definitely been quite a phenomenon. Assumptions underlie the intervention wheel. Assumption 1 through 10. Assumption 1 is defining public health nursing practice. Promoting, protecting the health and populations using nursing, social, and public health sciences. Public health nursing education is both public health and nursing. Primary focus is health and disease prevention for the entire population groups. Assumption 2 in public health nursing practice focuses on populations. Populations that focus on, opposed to individuals, populations, population at risk, and population of interest. This is a picture of a homeless person. So this is our population at risk. A population at risk is a population with a common identifying risk factor or risk exposure that poses a threat to health. A population of interest is a population that is essentially healthy, but that could improve factors to promote or protect health. So assumption 3 in public health nursing considerations, determinants of health. Health inequalities, U.S. inequalities, race, gender, age, socioeconomic, and determinants of health. Health inequalities are defined as health status inequalities that socially deems to be avoidable or unnecessary. Factors that influence health status across the life cycle are known as determinants of health. This include income, education, employment, social support, biology and genetics, physical environment, housing, transportation, and personal health practices. So assumption 4 is priorities identified through community assessment, ongoing collection and analysis, quantitative and qualitative data, result, list of community issues, and identify gaps between needs and services. A community is identified as a social network of interacting individuals, usually concentrated in a defined territory. Assumption 5 emphasizes on prevention, 3 levels of prevention. Primary, well populations. Secondary, early stages. Tertiary, seeks to prevent worsening of crisis. Primary prevention when possible. So primary prevention is anticipatory action taken to prevent the occurrence of an event or to minimize its effect after it has occurred. There are 3 levels of prevention: primary, secondary, and tertiary. So, assumption 5, emphasis on prevention. Although not every event is preventable, every event has a preventable component. Again, prevention is an action taken, anticipatory action taken to prevent the occurrence of an event or minimize its effect after it has occurred. Assumption 5, public health nurses intervene at all levels of practice. So they intervene at the 3 levels: community, systems, and individuals. Community level changes community norms. System level changes organizations, policies, laws, and power structures within the communities. And individual level changes knowledge, attitudes, beliefs, practices, and behaviors of the individual. We are probably going to be looking at changing individual levels in our public service announcement. Assumption 7, public health practice uses the nursing process at all levels of practice. The nursing process, of course, is assessment, diagnosis, planning, implementation, evaluation. Public health nurses customize the process to the 3 levels of practice. Assumption 8, public health nurse practice using a common set of interventions regardless of practice setting. So, 17 interventions grouped in that color wedges. We have red, green, and blue. Individuals, families, classes, and groups. Orange and yellow are our systems and our communities. So, interventions are actions taken on behalf of communities, systems, individuals, and families to improve or protect health status. The intervention wheel encompasses 17 interventions: surveillance, disease, and other health investigations, outreach, screening, case finding, referral, and follow-up, case management, delegation functions, health teaching, consultation, counseling, collaboration, coalition building, community organization, advocacy, social marketing, policy development, and enforcement. A public health nurse may use any or all of these interventions. Look at that wonderful figure on this next slide. Ah! It has assumption 8, but now we get to see our wheel. Interventions regardless of setting. The red wedge is surveillance, disease, and other investigations, outreach, and screening. And surveillance, again, is often paired with disease and health event investigations. Next, we have assumption 8, common set of interventions regardless of setting. Green wedge, referral and follow-up, case management, and delegation. The green wedge consists of referral and follow-up, case management, and delegated functions. 3 interventions that, in practice, are often implemented together. So, assumption 8 continued. Common set of interventions regardless of setting is the blue wedge: health, teaching, counseling, and consultation. Health, teaching, counseling, and consultation, the blue wedge, are more similar than they are different. Health, teaching, and counseling are especially often paired. So assumption 8, common set of interventions regardless of setting, is the orange wedge. And those interventions are collaboration, coalition building, and community organizing. The interventions in the orange wedge, collaboration, coalition building, and community organizing, although distinct, are grouped together because they are all types of collective action and are most often carried out at systems or community levels of practice. Let's look at our yellow wedge, which is advocacy, social marketing, and policy development and enforcement. Advocacy, social marketing, and policy development and enforcement, the yellow wedge, are often interrelated when implemented. In fact, the advocacy is often viewed as a precursor to policy development. Social marketing is often seen by some as a method of carrying out advocacy. We are going to be doing social marketing, so we are definitely hitting that advocacy wedge. Quick recall. Which of the 17 interventions is often preceded by outreach activities and frequently follows surveillance? And we're going to talk about screening, because screening frequently follows either surveillance or disease and health event investigation and is often preceded by outreach activities. So get that. Screening frequently follows either surveillance or disease and health event investigation and is often preceded by outreach activities. Just something we're just kind of beaten to a pulp here. Assumption 9 in public health nursing practice contributes to the achievement of 10 essential services. 10 essential services, what public health nurse does to protect and promote health. Interventions, how it gets it done. This means the implementation. The 10 essential public health services in Chapter 1 describe what the public health system does to protect and promote the health of the public. Interventions are the means by which public health practitioners implement the 10 essential service. Interventions are how the public health practice. So, Assumption 10, practice is grounded. Are cornerstones of public health. They synthesize the values, beliefs of both public health and nursing. The intervention wheel is the what and how. The cornerstones are why. The cornerstones of public health nursing were developed as a companion document to the intervention wheel. They inspire, guide, direct, and they challenge the public health practice. So using the intervention wheel in public health nursing, the intervention wheel is a conceptual model and has a common language, and the framework is a way of thinking about public health practice. It creates a structure for identifying and documenting interventions performed by public health nurses, and it captures the nature of your work. So it's very good to have that wheel. The intervention wheel has components. It has population-based, 3 practice level, and 17 interventions. So components of the 3 wheels, components 1 through 3. Component 1, the model in population-based of interest, populations of risk, and the upper half of the wheel. So we're looking at our population. So we have our population base, and so we're just looking and seeing where they are in the upper half of the wheel. And our next, the model encompasses 3 levels of practice: community level, systems level, and individual family level. So as you start looking, you see your systems focus, community, and individual as we start looking at our different, and those are in the lower half of our wheel. And then component 3, the model identifies the 17 interventions. We just talked about those different ones, so we're not going to go over them again, but you can read them if you want. Quick recall: which of the 17 interventions is often seen as a precursor to policy development? And the answer is A. Advocacy, social marketing, and policy development and enforcement, the yellow wedge, are often interrelated when implemented. In fact, advocacy is often viewed as a precursor to policy development, and social marketing is seen in some as a method of carrying out advocacy. So looking at this, advocacy is often our social marketing. So it's part of our policy development. So adaptation, as you see, we have different wheels that have been adapted in different ways. The Minnesota model is definitely one that we use here up in Alaska. And so we have different scenarios. I'm not going to go through them, but you can look through them if you want. And they correspond with different scenarios in the book as you review how to use your different public health wheel and how to use those different processes. So I'm going to go down here and say the closing challenge, learning the intervention wheel. To fully apply the public health process, it's important to understand all the aspects of the wheel. Can you do the following? Can you reproduce the wheel without looking? Identify all 3 components, identify all 3 levels, and label all 17 interventions. Now, you don't need to do that, but I want you to have an idea when you're looking at the wheel. How is this wheel going to help me with my project, with my community surveillance and assessment, and with my public service announcement? And that is where we are at the end of chapter 9. I can't wait to talk to you guys next week. Have a great week. I hope you get through all of this wonderful information. Don't forget to email me or send me a text, and we can go on Google Hangouts. Thank you guys. Have a great weekend.